What's going on, guys? Yesterday at 390 light, we got the Crota's End raid back. It's newly revamped form. I gotta tell you guys, I really enjoyed it. They made some nice changes to the raid. They cleaned up some areas in quite a few ways, made the raid, I think, a much more enjoyable experience than its original year one variant, and really increased the loot drop. So here's what we're gonna do. We're going to take a look at all of the stuff I got out of running the raid 3 times yesterday. Here we are on my primary character, the Warlock. And we're going to take a look at all the raid weapons I got. So I got all 4 of the Adept exotic primaries, which I was really happy about. The loot drops are very generous, so I think a lot of the people who did do the raid 3 times did end up with all of the exotics, which is really nice. So let's start off with the Word of Crota. This is one of my favorite hand cannons of all time because it is a void hand cannon. It does void damage as a hand cannon. Also, Hive Disruptor makes it very good against the Hive. You're going to notice this with all of the Crota's End weapons is that they all have this Hive Disruptor. So they're very good against Hive Majors. Next up, we've got Steady Hand, Fast Draw, and Sure Shot. Zen Moment for a little extra stability, Speed Reload, Hammer Forge for a little extra range, Explosive Rounds, and Phantom Gift. Rapidly landing 3 precision hits returns 1 round to the magazine. Obviously, the standouts here are the fact that it is void damage and it's got Hive Disruptor, but I gotta tell you, Phantom Gift doesn't hurt this thing at all. I really loved this gun in year 1. I'm really happy to have a void version of it back in year 3. This is going to be a lot of fun in Nightfalls, in raids. I expect to use it actually in the Vault of Glass because the Praetorians can be such a freaking nightmare with their void shields. It'll really help to be able to take those down very quickly. I also love the look of this thing. This new purple look for the Adept Exotics, it really does rustle some jimmies. It looks really nice. Next up, we have the Abyss Defiant. Not a lot of people really loved this gun in year 1, and there's a few reasons why. It's an auto rifle, right? Auto rifles, since they got nerfed early on in year 1, have never really been that good. However, this one's definitely got some uses. Again, it's got the Hive Disruptor perk. We got Quick Draw, Red Dot OAS, Hip Fire, Focused Fire, Single Point Sling, Perfect Balance, which is really nice on this, Lightweight, and then Lickbane. Projectiles have a chance to disorient Hive Wizards. So combine that with Solar, Lickbane, and Hive Disruptor. Again, you've got a great Nightfall weapon, especially if that Nightfall is against the Hive and has a lot of wizards in it. I love this weapon. Again, it looks fantastic with the purple on it. I don't know that I'm going to be using it a whole lot inside the Crucible or in regular PvE content, but it does look fantastic. I'm definitely glad I got it. Next up, we have the Oversoul Edict. Once again, we have Hive Disruptor, Red.OES, Red.OAS, Red.ORES. This one's got full auto, Snapshot, Field Scout, Fitted Stock, and Darkbreaker. Projectiles will overpenetrate through Hive Night Walls of Darkness. Now, the real standout here is this one is also very usable in PvP. It's that super high rate of fire pulse rifle archetype, but look at this, 33 rounds in the magazine, full auto, very nice. You can also get this in a Legendary edition, so you don't necessarily have to take up your exotic slot. It does do arc damage, so it is usable for arc damage Nightfalls or now story missions. So it is a lot of fun. It looks fantastic as it always has, but now there's also a Legendary edition. So the Legendary edition, the big change here is it doesn't have the arc damage, but every other perk on here is the same. So you still get that 33 rounds of the magazine. You still get full auto. You can still get Fitted Stock for a little increased stability and the Darkbreaker. So if you're going to use this in PvE or you're going to use it on a week where arc damage is not the elemental burn, then you're going to want to go with the Legendary. The Legendary versions of these weapons, I think, are actually rarer than the Adept Exotic versions, and in some situations, this one in particular, more desirable. Next up, we have the Fang of Yut. This was one of my favorite weapons in year 1. In a lot of situations, because it is an arc damage primary, it got overshadowed by the Fatebringer. But if you needed range, and now with range being severely nerfed on hand cannons, the Fang of Yut is going to come in handy in a lot of ways. Again, it does have Hive Disruptor, Red Dot ORS, True Sight IS, Focus Lens FLA 5. We've got Spray and Play. Increase the reload speed of this weapon when its mag is empty, and Target Mark. Enemies hit by this weapon are briefly highlighted. Imagine this perk in the dark pit of Alakul. That strike, it's going to be really useful for highlighting Alakul himself, making sure you can always see exactly where he is. We got high caliber rounds, perfect balance, which is probably what I want to go with, Field Scout, and Third Eye. Very good scout rifle. In PvE, if this didn't have the arc burn on it, I'll be honest with you, there's some other weapons that are probably overshadowing it at this point. But the addition of arc damage, the addition of Hive Disruptor, and frankly, the target mark does give it some abilities that other scout rifles just don't have. Next up, we also got a legendary version of the Abyss Defiant. Now, the auto rifles did get a buff, so we'll have to see how much this thing really gets helped out. I'm definitely going to want to roll this thing for as much range and stability as I can. It does come with focus fire. We got single point sling, perfect balance, lightweight, and of course the Lick Bane, which isn't going to be useful in PvP, but there are situations where it can be very useful in PvE. Now, on to secondary weapons. One of my favorite secondary weapons from a raid is the Swordbreaker. I absolutely adore this gun because it is so good in PvE. Now, it's not one of those super fast rate of fire shotguns with full auto on it, but what it does provide is extra damage against Hive Majors, Grenadier, Hammer Forged, Flared Magwell, Lightweight, and Final Round. It's a good roll, it does good damage, and it can really take out a Praetorian pretty quickly in the Vault of Glass. This will definitely be in my inventory when I do Vault of Glass next week. I did not get Light of the Abyss, so that is the one weapon that I missed out on from the Crota's End raid. That is a fusion rifle that hopefully will come to my inventory eventually. Although, in all honesty, I never really used it that often in year 1, so I'm not really missing it much now. Something that I was very happy to get is my favorite legendary PvE rocket launcher of all time. This thing is absolutely my favorite. It's the Hunger of Crota. It does solar damage. It has Hive Disruptor. We got soft launch, linear compensator, aggressive launch, tracking, quick draw, javelin, heavy payload, and cluster bombs. So the big deal about this thing is it's the only legendary rocket launcher that I'm aware of that has cluster bombs and tracking. It's absolutely a must-have in PvE. If you cannot use your Galahorn because you're using your exotic in another place, Hunger of Crota means you're just not going to miss it that much. I absolutely adore this rocket launcher. Another heavy weapon that you get from Crota is the Song of Yut. This one is a super high rate of fire machine gun, and I gotta be honest with you, I never really loved this archetype. It does come with Hive Disruptor and its other perk, Darkbreaker. Projectiles will over-penetrate through Hive Night walls of darkness. This can be useful in certain nightfalls, especially in year 1, although I tend not to have these problems with the Knights as often in year 3 as I used to have in year 1. It did have its purpose back in the day. It also has Hammer Forged, Flared Magwell, High Caliber Rounds, Grenadier, Smart Drift Control, Accurized Ballistics, and Aggressive Ballistics. Not a bad machine gun for PvE purposes. You definitely don't want to use it for PvP. And it's really situational in PvE. In most situations, I'd rather just go with the Hunger of Crota. Really is one of my favorite legendary rocket launchers of all time. If not my absolute favorite, I think it really is. For armor, things were a lot more stingy. So the deal with the Crota's End raid is, yeah, you're going to get your exotics really quick. What you're going to be looking for are the legendary variants of those exotic primaries and armor. So on my Warlock, I did get the Death Singer's Mantle. You can see it does have ornaments on it. There's the kind of the green glow all throughout the edges and these kind of horns sticking off the belt. as well as these very small horns going off of the collar, which I think is a really nice subtle touch. I like the look of this a lot better than I liked it in year one. This is the ornamented version. The only other piece of armor I got is the bone circlet, which looks a lot like Omnigul's crest, but it is ornamentable. Is that even a word? Ornamentable? And you can see it's got these kind of holographic horns hanging off the side. You better be careful you don't poke yourself in the eye with those. So let's move on to my hunter. All right, as you can see, the raid was very stingy for my hunter as far as armor concerns. The only piece I got was the Shroud of Flies, which, while it is certainly unique looking, and I love the ornamentation with the horns up there, I gotta say, not one of my favorite cloaks in the game. I do like the horns, but man, that is not super attractive. Let me take the shader off so you can see it without the shader, because I think it just keeps getting uglier the longer you look at it. So yeah, this isn't one of my favorites in the game. I'll definitely be running it when I run Crota, just to try and get all the gear and make it look cool, but certainly not one of my favorites. Let's move on to the Titan. For the Titan, things were a little more generous than they were with the Hunter. I did get the Willbreaker's Resolve piece of chest armor. I was able to ornament it, and there's not a whole lot going on here. You can see these extra 4 horns, these holographic horns in the back. For the most part, it looks very reminiscent of the year 1 stuff. It is ornamented. I got shotgun loader and scout rifle ammo, which I'm okay with, or shotgun ammo and scout rifle ammo, which I'm okay with. The rolls aren't particularly great on a lot of this armor. I decided to ornament basically everything anyway, just because I wanted to see it. I also did get the class item, the Mark of the Pit, which you don't ornament right now. And that is actually fairly spectacular. I really like the look of that, with the holograms kind of hanging off and extending the class item. That one looks pretty good to me, and you can see up here it's got some holograms as well. Let's take the shader off of this so we can see it in all its glory. There we go. So yeah, that's red and black. You can see the chest piece doesn't have a lot going on, but the class item actually does have quite a lot going on, and that'll look pretty spectacular. So that's where I'm at. I gotta say, the Will of Crota, or the Crota's End raid, the new Crota's End raid, was very generous indeed. I got a lot of exotics, got a lot of legendaries, little skimpy on the armor pieces, but that basically keeps you motivated, keep on grinding for something else. One last thing I did get, and I only got one of these in all of my 3 runs of the raid, is the Knuckles of Io. Effect that increases the rewards from the next raid encounter you complete in a weekly featured raid. Boons I grant you, O bearer of mine, but debts must be paid in time. So basically, you pop these during an encounter, and it works a little bit like 3 of Coins, where it works for the next boss fight or the next encounter in a raid and doubles your loot drops for that encounter. Works in any of the new 390 raids, so I didn't use it for Crota. I plan on using it for the Vault of Glass next week. Basically just saving it up, hoping that I get some really good drops from the Vault of Glass. So Knuckles of Io, if you look out for these. If you get one, save it for the moment when you want to use it the most. So that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Hit that like button if you like the video. Hit subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.